Second item on the agenda is a proposed ordinance amendment to Chapter 134-71, utility account payments, termination of services. Mr. Wilson?
Sir. Good evening. A few months ago, Town Council had requested that the staff come back to council with additional information on some items concerning our bad debt. Those items included judgments for bad debt on utility accounts, raising the minimum deposit from $125 to $150, obtaining a personal guarantee on business utility accounts, and considering proof of income. We have our first round in process for judgments on bad debt for the utility accounts. The other three items are included in an ordinance amendment that we can indeed proceed with if council chooses to do so. The one thing that I'd like to point out with staff recommendation is that the requiring of the personal guarantee and furnishing proof of income would help reduce the bad debt, but would also make the utility application process more cumbersome for some of our applicants. We have approximately 2,000 new utility accounts opened each year. Approximately 240 are subject to bad debt expense after 5 years. We have a total of 8,000 utility accounts, approximately. So about 240 of those each year are subject to bad debt, it seems, and is roughly one.
Can you say that number again?
We have approximately a total of 8,000 utility accounts. Of
How many
those,
are bad debt?
approximately 240. The amount of bad debt we are writing off is roughly 1% of the total value billed annually, a little less than 1% actually. So staff does recommend raising the minimum amount for the deposits on the utility account and allowing staff to continue pursuing judgments and possibly reviewing additional collection options such as the personal guarantee and proof of income after a year or so, or bring back maybe additional options at our next quarterly review of these. We are putting together, staff is putting together information on what other localities do, such as the amount of their deposits, what they're requiring, how they're handling their bad debt as far as some are doing liens, some are doing outside collection agencies, and then review it at that point in time. So this time I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Mr. T-Walt?
BJ,
Yes, sir.
you know, I know we've had problem with the LLCs. Is this gonna be a guarantee that some personal person's gonna have to be responsible and no more LLCs and nobody to hold accountable?
That's what the ordinance is suggesting.
Can we enforce that?
Yes, we can indeed enforce it. It would only pertain to our normal utility accounts. It would not obtain to the pilot accounts. The pilot are a different ballgame.
Talking about that on the corridor?
Correct.
Why wouldn't that apply?
The pilots are a little bit more entailed, and they have a contract. Is George here? George is going to be here to help answer some questions on that. But the pilots are under a different process altogether. They have a special contract. They do require proof of income for the businesses out there already. So there's some other things that are they're happening behind the scenes.
So you feel that they're adequate as far as the contracts?
Yes, we haven't had too many problems with pilots. Bankruptcy has been a problem, but you're going to have that in all districts. So yeah, we haven't had a major problem when it comes to the pilots. So I wouldn't recommend doing much with those at this point.
So have you ruled out the fact of doing garnishments or anything like that?
Garnishments have not been ruled out. We're in the early stages of obtaining judgments, and judgment is the first step. After that, I don't know where it's going to take us. We're taking baby steps along the way for the judgments. And, we have approximately, I think, 20 to 30 in this first round. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Mr. T-Walt?
The other thing that we discussed mainly to this was to bring us into a quarterly, rather than this waiting 3 years or a year.
And that's the next item we're gonna talk about, is our quarterly write-offs. and
Yes,
Do we have any dates when you're thinking about the garnishment phase?
No, I do not. Like I said, the first step is for us to obtain the judgments. Once we obtain the judgments, we'll have to see where that kind of takes us, make sure that we can get the judgment intact first. This is new territory for us.
Projected date?
Doug?
You think 3 months?
Well, it's a three-step process when you go to court. First, you get a judgment. Then you have to do debtors interrogatories to find out where the debtors' assets are located and what assets they have. And then you can do garnishments and things of that nature. But first, you gotta get your judgment. And then you have to find out what assets the debtor has and where the assets are located. And then you can do garnishments and things of that nature. So it's a three-step process.
But once it's simplified, it flows pretty easily.
Yeah, once you get your judgments, and once you locate the assets, then you know what you can grab. But you have to first get the judgments, and we're in that process right now, filing judgments.
There's two more.
BJ, if I, say I was renting a unit somewhere, and I just, say I go into the mode of not paying my bill, yada, 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 and then you all come in and say, we're gonna cut it off. What's the avenue that you go through to have someone else take over that electrical bill and all the other things? Like, if I say it was in my name, and then I put it in my daughter's name, or my son's name, or aunt's name, or whatever. How does that work?
The owner of the property can put utilities in their name. We, require proof of ownership or a copy of a lease signed by the owner. So, that's the first step, is we have to have ownership or a copy of a lease to show that they're residing at that property. At that point in time, we would determine if a deposit is necessary. A deposit would be necessary if they can provide, or if they've had bad credit with us in the past, no more than 4 late payments in the course of a year, or they provide a letter of credit reference from another utility holder showing this equal equivalent. Other than that, we would require deposits. Deposits are currently based on the highest bill for the previous 12 months while the property was occupied, or a minimum of $125.
That doesn't answer my question.
Sorry.
If I'm living there, it's in my name, and then you come in and you'll have it turned off, and can one of the kids or a relative come in and have it turned back on?
Only the owner or somebody that's
Only the
leasing,
owner.
or someone that's leasing the property with a valid lease.
Okay, so the person's name would have to be on the lease
Correct.
in order for that to happen?
So if you were the owner and you were in it,
Yeah.
and if you had your power shut off, then all you have to do is do up a lease. If you're the owner or one of your kids.
Unfortunately, that is the case. We can't, not much I can do about that one, but yes, it does happen.
A lease is a lease.
A lease
Yeah,
is a lease.
I think it'd be worthwhile, and Joe would mention this last week, it'd be worthwhile to see what some of these other utility companies do and how they handle this whole process, because I think they're very sophisticated in how they do it. I think it'd be worthwhile to have that. I don't want to stop the process,
Right.
let's keep moving forward, but I think it'd be good to have that for the next meeting,
Okay.
just as background. Anything else you want to add to this?
No, sir.
Any other questions from council?
I'd like to see a targeted date. I mean, all projects have a targeted date. Are you planning 3 months out, 6 months out? When do you think you're going to present us with? I'm very interested in garnishment, because when I see the amount of money we write off annually to bad debts, it really troubles me. We just wrote off, what, 300,000?
Yes, sir.
That's not chicken feed, that's $250,000. And that pays for a lot of good service for us.
Well, the
So I'd like to see this thing
taxpayers are
implemented.
subsidizing that.
I didn't hear that.
Taxpayers are subsidizing that, that's really the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sit on the bank board and I know exactly how we do it. And one person handles it and it just flows. And we do write off, but it's usually because we can't, get the contact. And garnishments do work, because people come and pay their bills.
But are we ready to do a public hearing in order to consider this as a?
That's up to town council there. My recommendation would be to do it all at once. But I mean, we certainly can move forward with it. I would personally like to hold off on the guarantees and the proof of income at this time. The deposits, we certainly can move forward with. We can move forward with any.
No, I don't want to see us move forward if we're not ready.
Right.
I mean, we've done that too many times in the past, and then we come to find out we have left the major items out.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I wanna
Bill,
see
when do you
the
think we can
package.
get this all packaged together so we know?
As far as the garnishments, Doug may be able to provide something on a timeline as far as that goes.
Yeah, I mean, we're proceeding, we've got to get the judgments first, and we've got to get the court dates. So we filed a bunch of judgments, but we have to
Yeah,
get
but
it.
Judgments take time, because I've done it a few times to
Well, I know
reverse.
it does, but
It takes time.
That's not part of passing this ordinance.
Yeah, I think we're talking, let's stay focused on I think what we're talking about is strictly the ordinance,
Yeah.
right? So, Bill, your point is you want to see the garnishment in the ordinance,
Yes, I like to
Okay.
see,
right? So you propose
I don't wanna
language.
see, mealy this and add that later and,
Right, right.
come with a
So-
complete package so we can fully understand
Right,
the direction we're going. I don't wanna see another $300,000 write-off.
right. Ms. Tom-
If that occurs, we have a problem. We as a council have a problem.
Well, but can't we just go ahead and write that in this ordinance and say that we're gonna do the garnishments or whatever? We don't have to really begin to enforce stuff till the ordinance is in anyway.
Well, you can put in the ordinance that the town shall take all reasonable efforts, legal efforts to collect the debt. I mean, that's what you do.
And garnishments is part of that,
That's part of it.
right?
I mean, you can put it in the ordinance or not. I mean, that's a directive of the town council and direct staff, whether it's in the ordinance or not.
Ms. Thompson had a question.
Yes, having the applicants list their employer will help with the judgment process, because then you know where they do work. If you get to a stage of garnishment, you can say, well, they work at Sears in Winchester or something, and it makes it easier, because I used to do property management, we would do the same thing with the judgments.
And we certainly can. We can revise the application. It's going to be more cumbersome, like I say, for our applicants, but I mean.
Or even if they just list their employer and the phone number or something along those lines, you'd at least have something to work with.
Understood.
Okay, so I think it's important to differentiate three things. One thing is the ordinance itself, the second is the application process, and the third is actually the legal enforcement. So right now, tonight, we're talking about the ordinance. Sounds like there's a couple, perhaps tweaks, other than what's proposed for the ordinance. Is there anything more significant needed for the ordinance to keep it off public hearing? Or are we prepared to move forward? Gene, you handled some questions.
Well, I mean.
The ordinance itself, do you think the ordinance needs more work?
Not really in a way, but I just want to make sure that we're pursuing all aspects of.
I agree.
Getting the money. If we don't need it in the ordinance and we just automatically go for these garnishments or whatever, that's fine with me, as long as we're pursuing it. I mean, I just want to make sure that we're covered, that we have enough bite in these ordinances that we can enforce them.
Okay, so I think the direction, Joe, I hear no objection from council. I think we're prepared to move forward on the ordinance. And if there's any minor tweaks between now and the public hearing, let's go ahead and get that in. Behind that, at the next work session, I believe council wants to see more specifically recommended changes to the application, which does not need to be part of an ordinance. And then through that process, we can continue to do more research, Doug, as well, from a legal perspective of legal enforcement, so we have a better idea of not only how we're going to have these individuals apply for these applications, or through this application process, but also what extra steps can we take from a legal perspective to ensure we collect that $300,000 of bad debt. Does that sound, everyone's liking? Bill, Chris, Tasha, you good with that? Joe, you good on that? Any questions?
No, not at all.
Doug, you good?
Good.
You good with that, BJ? Yep. Okay, any other, is that all for item 2?
Yes.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention? I thought there was one other item.
Item 3.
Wasn't there something else on, was it on number 3?
It's on number 3.
Yes, I'm sorry. All right, so number 3 is write-off for bad debt. Mr. Wilson?
So this is the quarterly write-off that was requested. We're just bringing this back to town council. to approve the, well, as Mr. Seelock had stated, we were doing this annually. We requested bringing it back quarterly, so that's exactly what we're doing, bringing it back quarterly here. We have a total of 59 utility accounts that we're requesting to be written off for a total of $27,755.98. We have pursued all possible recourse for attempting to collect on these amounts. Has been completed, and there's been no activity on these accounts for at least the last 5 years. And these have surpassed the Code of Virginia statute of limitation for collections at this point in time. So we're just requesting town council to approve these to be written off.
The main word there is what he said.
Yeah, they can't do anything
We're
about it.
past
Yeah,
the 5-year
Yeah.
limitation. Remember, we had 7 years previously, and I brought to the attention of the council that state statute changed to 5. So, I mean, we're doing the right thing here and showing it now, instead of building up to 300,000 and then write it off. I just don't agree with that.
PJ,
Yeah, please.
in regards to some of the, I'm looking at these things, some of them almost same address, same building, same address. Even though the 5-year limitation is run out, if this person that lived at 29 D Street or whatever, would come back in, the same person, can you still have any recourse? And
The only thing we can do is request a deposit on the new account.
just,
We
you can't go back,
we
and
can't
after
go back.
this has been done, after the 5 years, you can't go back and hold that person accountable.
We can't hold them accountable, they can voluntarily pay.
Well,
Chances of that's.
That'd
But,
be great.
but yeah, but we can
Yeah.
require a deposit on the new account, and that's what we
Just a
do.
deposit.
Yes, sir.
Is there any way that we could possibility do a, going back to the ordinance,
Right.
if a person has been cut off and they're on this list, and that person's name shows up back in our computer system, is there any way we can add another charge to that individual in order to raise the cost to get the power turned back on or turned on at all at the beginning? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I would say it would have to be an ordinance amendment.
Is that
I think we
possible?
should be able to do something on this.
We'll look, and if there's a way to do it, we'll do that.
Well, I don't know, I'm just saying, I mean, if I come back in 5 years after this thing's been done, I think it ought to be some type of recourse for me to have to pay additional costs.
We'll try to get creative and see if there's like an inconvenience fee to the town.
The,
Because like you said earlier, Gene, if you were living in a house, you had your power shut off, what would you do?
I know.
There's a way to get around it.
It's always a way to get around
the, once we obtain the judgments do remain on, we're allowed to collect on those for 20 years, I believe, Doug?
Yeah, you can extend it up to 40 years.
And yes,
it. So
so,
these have been recorded,
no, judgments have not been recorded on these. We chose to go with the amounts that were $1,000 or greater, starting out. And that's what we're proceeding with right now.
so anything under that, we're not doing the adjustment,
Not
just
currently.
those above 1,000.
Correct, yes.
I assume, Doug, we could increase the deposit amount for someone that's on the list
That's what I,
You could. You could.
to prevent, I mean, we're taking more risk by allowing them access to our electric.
should we add that to our ordinance?
And this is an experiment in progress, as we go along, we may want to change the numbers in the ordinance.
Okay, so we want to get the I think we want to get the ordinance right. So, and I don't think we want in the regular meeting to be bouncing around a lot of different numbers. Okay? So Joe, what's your idea as far as how do you want to handle the numbers? Do you want to try to staff come up with a recommendation and circulate it and we pull it off the agenda if necessary, if we're not ready? Or
It would be my preference that we bring it back to the next work session with all the
Slow it
missing
down.
pieces. Fill it in a little bit better before we proceed with the public hearing. Therefore, we can, at the next meeting, we can come back with a better guideline or plan of how we're gonna do these judgments and give Mr. Seelock a better perspective on what our timeline is for that as well. And I think it would just be our advantage to be able to get a few of these other little things straightened out before we go to a public
Okay,
hearing. on board.
everybody good with that?
You know, I need to say one more thing. Our town manager and finance director and staff inherited this process, and they've been following those guidelines. So all we're doing is upgrading the guidelines for them, so they inherited that. So I want everybody to know that.
Yeah, good point. Anything else, Mr. Wilson? Good, thank you.